Blackburn grew up in Evansville, Indiana. He attended University of Cincinnati and was on their work-study program there. He's worked for a variety of offices in the field of graphic design, including Shemaiah Geismar and Associates. It was while he was working with Shemaiah Geismar in 1970 that he designed the bicentennial symbol that became quite familiar to us in 1976. It was in 1973 that he opened his own practice in graphic design with a man named Danny, and they have Danny Blackburn Associates in New York City. He has a firm of about 15 employees at this time, and I think you'll be very excited to see the work he has done for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, as well as other corporate and public clients. It's a pleasure to introduce to you Bruce Blackburn. Bruce?
It's okay, Jerry. Always wanted to be in a jewelry ad. It's nice to be back among you Hoosiers again and feel the pace slow down a little bit. It's always a kind of reverse culture shock. I visited my father over the weekend in Evansville, which part of the plot that Charles and I developed for this evening. And I always have mixed feelings about it, but it's always enjoyable to come back home again and visit Indiana. Very surprised and pleased to learn about the size of the school here at Ball State. Charles brought me in New York, explained to me where he was from and what he was doing and why he was maybe interested in people like me and so forth. Very good program that you have here, and I'm glad to see that as architects and planners and so forth who are making an attempt to reach out and maybe understand a little bit more about some of your brothers under the skin that are operating all around you, and will be more and more as you go out into professional practice. I have worked on a number of projects over the years that have involved architecture and architects and landscape architects and other consultants in the architecture area. And one maxim that graphic designers tend to go by is that you can always rest assured that an architect will design a building in such a way that there is no way that you can put a sign on it. And I was hoping that getting together with you tonight might be a little bit of a bridge that we could build between graphic designers and architects, and that before you inflict yourselves upon the public and the graphic design community, that maybe there could be a little more consciousness of that as a part of the total problem. It seems to me that buildings are not just monuments, they're also vehicles for communication. And some fleeting gesture in that direction should be made in the initial design phases. So that's the end of my sermon about architects and so forth. On to graphic design. Hope that what we talk about and look at tonight will be instructive to you in some ways, and will hopefully illustrate the title of the lecture in some remote way. The idea of generalism as it relates to the practice of graphic design almost necessitates defining generalism in terms of specialization. And in our field, as in yours, there is a real trend, I think, over the last 10 or 15 years toward a highly specialized breakdown of the graphic design field, in which there are people who do nothing but packaging, for instance, some who do nothing but publications work, and so forth, then sub-specializations within those areas that get ever more narrow as they go and ever more repetitive as they go, and have a tendency, in my view, to produce a level of work that could be called high mediocrity. There are not very many things that rise above that level when you do, for instance, as one of my colleague firms in New York produces about 40 to 60 annual reports in 1 year. And that would be like all of the people doing 60 bicycle sheds a year. I suppose after a certain amount of time, it would be extremely difficult to bring anything really fresh to that next bicycle shed that is coming across your desk. So, to make a very long story short, my partner and I both happen to believe that the way to stay fresh as a designer is to keep your appetites and your diet mixed as much as you possibly can, so that you are doing things that encompass a very broad range of problems within the field, and you are not necessarily doing things that are extremely repetitive and tend to become lockstep. This is a hard thing to accomplish, in fact, and a very easy thing to stand up here and talk about, and I can tell you that after almost 8 years in my own firm, in the past 2 years, it has literally started to happen. But the attitude has been there from the very beginning. And I think the attitude is really the most important thing. I think perhaps the best way to illustrate the attitude is to look at the work that has been done. I have a number of illustrations of work that we've done at Nathaniel and Blackburn, some that goes back prior to Nathaniel and Blackburn. And it has an orientation, some would call it a stylistic inclination. We like to think not. We are hopefully, if not in the purest sense, we are problem solvers. We believe that we can bring the most to the solution of a problem by letting that solution grow out of a definition of the problem, rather than superimposing our own preconceptions and stylistic orientation onto the problem. And so that, if you follow that kind of an avenue, you do come up with some rather surprising results from time to time. The examples that I have to show you tonight are a lot of them very much related to systems planning and have to do with trademarks and corporate and institutional identification programs, which are implemented through guidelines run by a graphic designer, industrial designer, what have you. Some of these programs have even extended into architecture at certain points. There are also a number of examples of one-time projects which have turned out well or are interesting for one reason or another. Hopefully, the aggregate of all these examples will show you how one design firm, one rather young and smallish design firm, has attempted to make the generalist title, the general practitioner title, if you will, stick. first example is a Fashion Institute of Technology recruiting brochure, which is done on a shoestring budget, and is probably the one publication that college relies on most heavily for its livelihood. It's a tabloid-sized publication, and it is printed as a full-color, four-color process print job. And this is the cover of the latest issue, which uses quotations from students on front, back, and inside front and back covers as a graphic. It's the opening of the book. And a selection of spreads. One thing that the Fashion Institute of Technology has to sell that no other school like it has is New York City. So this spread was put together to emphasize that attribute of the school being located on 7th Avenue, right in the heart of the fashion district. Here are some distinguished graduates, past graduates, including people like Kiley, and so forth. A view of the school. And then some spreads that were devoted to the individual pursuits within the curriculum, and predominantly use student work as the graphic content. And this continues community resources. This one. And the whole effect of that book is a very lively, vibrant, live sort of environment. This is a cover of an annual report. The shot is taken in Singapore, and it illustrates an attitude that's carried throughout this particular publication design, which very, very beautiful symbolic photography was used to illustrate an investment banker's field that had been made through the years. Important financial dealings that this company had been a large part of. And to try and illustrate that they were involved with business interests on a worldwide basis. So the examples come from Canada, the United States, Europe. This is the common market building. Latin America, Middle East. An entirely different kind of a problem, a packaging problem. This for Westinghouse Broadcasting Company, a survey of the history of American popular music. This is really a boxed set of records in which the whole package is designed as a unit so that even the little round titles on each of the discs change in typographic style depending on what bracket of years that particular sampling of music came from. Tailor-made package. It's a logotype that was developed for Business Week and is used as their masthead on the magazine. And that was about the only suggestion of ours that they took in good faith. But that did survive. And this is one of a series that ran for approximately 4 years. State University of New York, a publication called University Review, which was sort of a combination literary, art review, and general items of interest to university students and faculty throughout state. It too is an extremely low budget kind of effort, which looked like a very slick publication in the end. Here, for instance, is one very simple editorial treatment. It's a piece of fiction about a man who loves the sea and ultimately disappears into it one day. Succession of spreads using the ocean as a backdrop for the topography. Another cover from that same series of publications. Another kind of graphic treatment for a Nature article. Follow-up spreads. This issue had a major article in it that dealt with human evolution, which began like this. It went through a kind of a movie sequence on the spreads until we finally ended with this, which was then repeated as the cover graphic. This is a corporate trademark for an industrial company called Isco Corporation. And this particular logotype was developed and then extended into an alphabet, which was utilized for the corporate name. And for the various operating groups within the company. And the alphabet was also used for advertising headlines and promotional materials that the company utilized in all of its operating groups. So that the logotype itself was not alone and reinforced on a completely different level than is normal by a relatively unique alphabet that has a lot of character in it that doesn't go completely overboard into bad taste, as they so often will do. It still has more or less classical proportions and is legible and usable in all the circumstances where it's needed. So that was a fairly successful attempt at doing this. Another annual report. Hammermill is a company that looks at itself in a certain kind of way, and they right on the cover say the future of this company's leadership in 5 separate but related businesses. And the graphic there is obviously a 5-part thing, and it goes on to the inside to a series of 5 units that look like this, which in this particular case, industrial and packaging papers, there is a photograph of actual product on the left in black and white, and on the right a photograph of the manufacturing process that, or the end use that product is put to. And each of the photographs, on the colored photographs, had an aspect of motion in them. There's an interesting difference in putting together a publication such as this. One of my colleagues, Jim Cross in Los Angeles, says that most people take pictures, some people make pictures. And in order to make one of these publications really come alive in the competitive sort of communication environment that we're in today, one almost has to make the pictures, not take them. So that there are very few happy accidents that occur, 5 in a row, that you can put in a publication like this. So, in any event, here is another of the spreads talking to paper products, envelopes, and so forth. that is a brand mark of GAF Corporation and is the umbrella under which approximately 350 X-ray related film and chemical products are sold. And this is the keystone in a sort of miniature identification program that is also a packaging program. And it came out looking something like this in schematic. It was, again, we seem to be, I say this over and over, this was an extremely low budget kind of effort. All of the printing was one or two colors on white. I guess it's always two. And always the GAF red, which was a requirement. And the general look of the thing was designed to fulfill the goals of a larger program, that being the corporate identification program of GAF, but yet it assumed its own identity on another level, that of brand and product identification. This was then extended into a few other areas as being an actual densitometer that they marketed under the name GAF for X-ray. This is another small closed system sort of solution to a problem that IBM continually has. The rumor in the company is that IBM really stands for I've been moved. And when you consider that they do actually move 8,000 to 10,000 families a year in the United States, it is a problem.
And this was a situation that began with a fellow at IBM who was a director in the personnel area, showing us a sheet of about 80 pages of Xerox copies that were stapled together in the upper left-hand corner, were written in typescript, and really amounted to a legal brief, which was an extremely intimidating and cold way to present one of these employees with the idea that you were going to move him next week from Denver into New York City, where his whole life would be upside down for potentially 3 years, or who knows. And so we were called in to consider the alternatives and presented IBM with the idea that a little humor would go a long way here, and a little empathy to boot. So what we really ended up doing was formulating an editorial policy for IBM with respect to how do they get the rules and regulations across on moving when the company wants you to move. So working with their people, we ended up dividing this thing into 5 categories. And each of the 5 were presented in a separate booklet. The scale of this thing is about 6 inches by 10 inches. We used bright, warm, earthy colors. We used illustrations that border on being humorous, but really aren't cynically humorous about the subject. They show an empathy of sorts. It's a terribly difficult subject, in other words. So, in any event, we packaged this bad news for them so that people didn't throw it back across the desk at them when we handed it to them. And it seems to be working. This has been out now for about 6 months, and they seem to be extremely pleased with it. Both the people in the personnel area and the people who are moving, incidentally. So I'm very pleased about that one. This is the U.S. bicentennial symbol, which a few of you may have seen in and around 1976. This is a project that I got a laugh on that. It was everywhere, and this is a real once-in-a-lifetime
proposition. The genesis of the project was from the presidential commission for the bicentennial, who somehow found a way to four design firms way back in 1969 or so, and asked them to compete to submit proposals for the design of a symbol for the bicentennial, and then be juried by a distinguished panel of people from professional practice as well as from government. I think, for instance, Dennis Gleason from the National Park Service was part of that jury, and Milton Glaser, you may or may not know about the design illustrator, was also one of the jurors. So in any event, they gave all of these four firms about 4 months to make their recommendations and present them to a jury. And there were about, as I remember, a dozen entries or so from my firm, and I don't know how many from the other ones, but I suspect it must have been 20 or so in the competition. And this one was chosen as the winner of the competition, and then accepted by the commission and adopted in law and so on and so on. And that's why you saw so much of it. It's ironic that you think you saw a lot of it, but you really didn't, because about 50 or 80%, or 50 to 80% of the plans that were made, formulated by the bicentennial operatives, the people who worked, the professionals who worked for the commission, those plans never really saw the light of day. And it's always been sad to me that some of those things didn't happen. For instance, there was a plan to actually implement a high-speed rapid transit link from Boston to Washington. It's one of the more ambitious ones. Another one was a national bicentennial park system that was going to be built on unused federal land in every state in the Union. Both of those had great merit, and neither of them were implemented or even came close to being implemented. It's a shame. This is the first evidence, really, of the public evidence of the bicentennial symbol, a commemorative stamp that was issued in, I believe, 1974 or 75 on July 4th. And after that, the floodgates were open. A lot of it was out there. This is a part of the standards manual that I put together for the use of this symbol. This is not your typical corporate identity situation where you can say that the chairman of the board is hereby decreed you will obey this manual or you lose your job. This is sort of like dropping them out of helicopters and hoping for the best. Although they were very, very much police state oriented in the way they went at this, it's still impossible to keep everybody under control. So the drawing on your left is a method of constructing the symbol from scratch. I had a beautiful line in the copy there that I'll never forget, everyone laughed at. It says, "Draw a perfect pentagram." And everyone went into hysterics over that. But in any event, there were such things done, and this thing is down on the vehicle assembly building in Cape Kennedy, and it's about 300 feet across. That's one. There's a field house with a hyperbolic paraboloid roof in Phoenix, Arizona, which has this thing on it at a similar scale. Some guy in Florida who did one about 500 feet across, rendered it in flowers. And there was a lot of craziness going on during that time. It was a lot of fun, but we were trying to anticipate all of that, so it was a pretty gingerly approach to the whole thing. By the way, I didn't design that hair on the left-hand page. Really nice effect. also devoted to showing standard items that were either in use or available for use by the public. And the one on the left shows an official poster design. Incidentally, I didn't mention it, but you may have noticed since the first slide, there's now a gray ring around the star, which was really not intended to be there. The Bicentennial Commission didn't listen too well, and they went into session at one point and voted unanimously that there would be a ring of type around the star symbol, which would say what it says there, and that was that. No discussion. So it was not designed to be that way. It was designed to be the way it was. And can I go backwards here? I don't think I can. One more. Right. That's the way it was supposed to work. So that the star symbol was a freestanding element, and the typographic portion provided platforms where to sit on. And we didn't talk about the symbolism in it. The symbolism is obviously the two stars in one. The interior star is wrapped with the red, white, and blue bunting star, symbolizing the 2 centuries. And also there was a lot to do with the softness of the outer star. Somehow at that particular point in our history, it seemed to me that 5-pointed stars may be the only sort of viable contemporary symbol that also goes back to revolutionary times and stands up as a symbol. That to use it in its raw state is pretty aggressive, pretty hard-edged, pretty militaristic, and so forth. So the softness aspect of it was an intentional sort of thing. The thing ultimately came to have the nickname Fat Star. Got red one. Okay, this is another kind of identification problem, completely different. Again, this is a French fragrance manufacturer, and one who has an American subsidiary in New York, one whose products you will never see on the retail shelf. These people formulate new fragrances speculatively and then sell them to people like Avon, Procter & Gamble, the manufacturers of the consumer products. And they have a very, very strong feeling that they must compete for the attention of people at Avon or wherever in a way that they can identify with and in a way that they will be embarrassed by. And so we ended up doing something that was very feminine and sort of like the fragrance industry by using the script sort of technique, and then by doing things like this, which is a very sort of eclectic approach to graphic design. It's not a pure form thing at all. It's contemporary in its direction, but it uses this very traditional sort of script lettering as a major graphic content. And everything was first class for these people. Their letterheads were, and all of their paper pieces were engraved and printed to perfection, right down to the they have little paper sticks in this industry that they dip into the fragrance of the day and have a clip that they put it in, and they sniff it all day long to see. Noses are very important. It's a very strange thing. But they're very particular people. I guess that's really the point I want to make. And to prove how particular they are not, this is a before and after kind of thing. These are always amusing, but this one is maybe the best one ever for us. They use these boxes. This is the main delivery item in their business, and in it will go the newly developed fragrances that are to be sold to the Avons and P&Gs. And that was their presentation, and now that is their presentation, which is a significant step for them. Very, very simple program that comes on in an elegant way. The labels on the bottles, those are the bottles that the fragrance samples go in, and then they're put in a box, and so forth and so on. Cover of a booklet about it's actually about the chairman of Manufacturers Hanover Trust making a visit to Red China as the head of a trade delegation. And he came back thinking of himself as Marco Polo, which I thought was indicative of a really sort of shrunken ego, don't you? So the graphic is based on the idea of trade, obviously, and it's a nice, strong, simple statement. This is maybe the most horrendous kind of problem that I think a graphic designer can run into. These are, I think there are 60 photographs on this poster from Magna, which is probably the world's most well-known photographic collaborative. And each of the photographs in and of itself would be dynamite as a poster, all by itself. But no, we have to put 60 of them on one poster, right? And so this is the way it turned out in the end, and it is not bad under the circumstances. My old partner Ivan Shemaev used to say, if you have enough ugly, it suddenly becomes beautiful. And this was the test to see whether the reverse of that was true. This is a symbol for the 3rd Street Music Settlement in New York City, which is a nonprofit organization and music school, very fine music school. And my partner did this with them. He's a member of their board of directors. This also was ripped off by Channel 13, our PBS Newark affiliate. Some of you may or may not have seen that. This is an interesting problem from a communications point of view. The client in this case is an outfit called the American Bureau of Shipping. And everyone thinks of them as a government agency. They are not a government agency. They are in the business of working for everyone in the shipping industry to establish standards for the fabrication of ships and classification of ships. And so everyone has so much trouble with who they are that we made the whole cover of it. That paragraph under there explains who they are, and they are known as ABS, so that's the way the cover came out. The idea behind this capability booklet or facility booklet, whatever you want to call it, was to show a number of extremely different kinds of attitudes as you went through it to make certain points. Here, the idea of the computer-assisted and enhanced design of ships is illustrated very clearly. And here the idea of the various kinds of ship classifications and how many new ones there have been and so forth and so on. The idea of diversity of types of classifications. And here an ending spread which emphasizes their sort of global activity. All completely different kinds of graphic attitudes that knit it together in a way that it makes them all part of one communication effort. Another trademark, this for Clay Adams, which is a pharmaceutical supply firm. And the idea of obviously, the initial letters that produces and so forth, blended together. Here's a series of 3 booklets, which were done for a very fine printer and are devoted to the subjects that have to do with handmade, one-of-a-kind craftsmanship. This one being a Rolls Royce that was built for an Indian Maharishi to go out and hunt antelope in something. This is obviously a Stradivarius violin. Each of them carried a sort of wrapping paper cover that was indicative of the kind of content that was coming. The previous one, this is a very shiny black, slick finish, like the finish on a car. And the third one has to do with the old biplanes, and the cover of it was canvas. And the inside, a beautiful photographic essay that was shot in Rhinebeck, New York, the Airplane Museum. Another identification treatment for a restaurant in Rockefeller Center in New York, Swiss-centered restaurants. The idea of the Swiss Center was that it was 3 restaurants under one roof. And this is the main entrance, and it shows the architectural graphic treatment. Very simple, part of the basic material of the building. And quite striking in ways. And this is the red umbrella from Travelers Insurance. Symbolic shot that has really high content. And a succeeding cover. That one only took 5 days to shoot, folks. It kept raining. You don't want to shoot an umbrella picture when it's raining, right? Okay, this is another identification mark, which is done for a bank in Colorado, actually a bank holding company, United Banks of Colorado. And this is their main headquarters. This incidentally is I.M. Pei's building from long ago. What's the name of it? Mile High Center, right, which they own. You can see the tower in the upper right corner. This identification system has been applied to 20 some odd banks across the state of Colorado at this point. Very high visibility. This was an attempt to help them get into the electronic banking things, the very early sort of rough mock-up of the kind of thing that might be used in a shopping center sort of situation out in the clear. And is mostly shown through graphics in any bank. They are done for a magazine that is published by the South Street Seaport Museum in New York. And I think they are noteworthy for the way they hang together as a family of covers and produce an identity for the magazine. Beyond this, the magazine is all black and white. I'll show you a little bit of that. All of these photographs are in and around the waterways obviously the bridges. This is one of the buildings very near the, or in the seaport area. Here's an example of a spread magazine. A featured article. An obscure island in the middle of New York Harbor. Rough transition. This is a piece that it is really a kinetic sculpture painting sort of thing. It's done for a brownstone dwelling in Gramercy Park, New York City, and it was done for a fellow who was crippled and was working with an architect who was designing his place a piece at a time, and the theme of everything that was being done was that it could be used in a multitude of ways, or at least in two ways, so that everything was multifunction. Notice the little toadstools that slide into the tables. Now you see it, now you don't. The chairs on the left were either on the floor or hung off hooks on the walls. You had a theatrical lighting system running on the peak of the roof line, and lots of dials and twists and stereos and so forth to keep himself amused with. So he wanted something major to go in this space, and my solution to it was to give him this, which seemed to blend into the spirit of what was being done by the architect, and at the same time gave him the feature of mobility that he wanted so badly. And he could roll up to the wall in his wheelchair, and we had a long pole with a rubber tip on it, and he could move these things, these elements around at will. He could create his own arrangement, and it's sort of like we did, we painted the piece with striped wallpaper, so there is no wrong position for it. And you could have it together as a solid element, or you could move it apart and fragment it, depending on his need. Another identification logotype, this one for a development in and around the new headquarters for Owens, Illinois Corporation in Toledo, Ohio, which they have named Seagate. I hope you don't laugh too much at that. But that's how they saw it, and this is what we came up with. It has yet to be seen in great evidence. Posters here. This one is a program. It's for a program that Mobil Oil Corporation sponsored for up until last year for about 9 years straight. And this is a poster that I did for the original, the inaugural year of the program, and they have used it each successive year, and it's become a kind of a trademark for the program. Very complicated thing to have that done to, but it seems to be working. They actually sniped these posters all around New York City on all the construction in progress and open wall and fence areas that they could find and so forth, which is a policy that they've adhered to through the years, particularly in reference to things such as this, one of their major public broadcasting rebroadcasts of British television. And this was one of the very first ones that they got involved with. This is a 42nd Street extravaganza, which was part of a promotion calendar sort of promotion that was done by a high-quality printer in New York. And the graphics for the Rosemary's Baby, my partner did those a number of years ago. Truly one of the first examples of promotion of a film being done with excellent graphics, at about the same time that Saul Bass was making a lot of the same kind of progress out on the West Coast. This is the logotype for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. We've been working with NASA for about 5.5 years, probably more like 6 now, and developed a program for them based upon this logotype that we designed as a unifying graphic statement that encompasses the whole agency. I don't have a before with me, but the before was a kind of Buck Rogers blue circle with very heavily stylized NASA letters running through it, and kind of very outer space H.G. Wells kind of things going on in the little blue circle. Anyway, they called the blue circle the meatball. And then when we did this for them, some wise guy said that they had traded the meatball in for spaghetti. I don't know. Some people never catch it. So these are a few of some hypothetical suggestions that we made to them for publications as a direction in how to uplift their image, use their identification to advantage, and so forth. This was the future. This one talking about talking about the possibility of extraterrestrial life. I think some of it got in there and pushed the slide out of the mouth. A poster about space technology in use on Earth, really a justification for the expenditures on the manned space program. They have a library of photography that is not to be believed, and it's only just the surface is used. The stuff that they have down there that has never been published in any meaningful way is absolutely unbelievable. And we were suggesting that they try and use it in this kind of a poster series. This is a series of brochures that describe various programs that NASA has embarked upon on a continuing basis, and uses a very, very simple sort of silhouetted illustration technique along with the most acceptable version of typographic styling that we suggested to them and their signature. This is the graphic standards manual that we developed for NASA. And it was organized along these lines to cover as much ground as we thought we could. And had the obvious functional parts in it, the reproduction artwork, so that the logotype would always be done correctly. It's reproduced. And given the government printing system, that's a miracle when it happens. And here are some vehicles. They're fuzzing out on one side. But to illustrate how the government situation is different from the private industry situation, the top row of vehicles there is a bow in the direction of the General Services Administration's general issue vehicles that NASA might get in any color from lime green to bright red, who knows. And
The bottom two rows are for those situations when NASA might possibly be in control of their own destiny and could paint one of them white. This was a design for a traveling educational unit that was sent to schools around the country and presented a small exhibition and a program on NASA's activities in general. And this is a fairly detailed but still general specification for the painting of NASA's aircraft fleet as opposed to NASA's space fleet. And NASA has airplanes that look like needles and airplanes that look like flying boxcars. It's everything. It's not like doing your basic commercial airline where there are three types of aircraft. So we did a sort of a run through of some of the typical types of aircraft that were in that fleet, and the system that was applied was mostly designed itself because of the diversity of sizes and shapes of aircraft in their fleet. But it ended up being a pretty nice, clean looking thing. Here's an example of markings for clothing articles of one kind or another. This actually has been implemented, which thoroughly amazes me. You never know what they're going to get excited about, you know. You just have to keep right on putting one foot in front of the other one and keep on moving. And I think a few of you have probably seen this one too. We did the markings for the shuttle in really crazy circumstances. You may have read about the ceramic tile exterior flame-resistant, heat-resistant surface of the shuttle, and they kept sending us plans from the manufacturer that would indicate one day that you could only have, 36 square feet here and 20 square feet there, and they would mark out these areas, and then we would design the markings for the shuttle, and the next day they would send a new set of plans, and the 36 feet just moved 10 feet back, and now it looked like hell. And somehow we ended up like this, which is perfectly acceptable, but there is a tremendous portion of the surface of this thing where no markings will survive because of the heat that is encountered in re-entry from orbit. Another publication and photographic essay sort of treatment, this for Potlatch, which is what I call a linear forest products company. It's a classic forest products company. And there is a series of about 6 years long of books that are in a similar tradition and vein in terms of the way the company is portrayed in visual terms. This particular one focuses on their activities in the state of Idaho, and the map places precisely where they are and so forth. And it goes on with a series of large bleed photographs and editorial statements that make some important points, this one being about growing trees, planning for the future, so forth, so on. And then on into a segment that deals with their day-to-day operations in the state of Idaho, and points out the fact that in Idaho they have a miniature forest products industry contained within the state borders, which is an interesting thing. This is an exhibition / interiors problem, I guess. The client here is a major advertising agency, Ted Bates and Company in New York, who had moved into a new building and taken 10 floors of office space and had 2 floors of budget for this exhibit. And so the idea was that we designed a modular framework or matrix for graphic and photographic imagery, which could then be rotated from one floor to another, so that over the space of a year, you would never have the same, changing it on a bi-monthly basis, you would never see the same thing on the same floor twice, but then the next year you probably would. And these subject matter for these panels was quite varied and went all the way from this one, which was an exposition on hobbies and avocations of the employees of the agency. They had a fellow who was a concert violinist, and one who liked cars, and another one made funny faces. I can't remember all of them, but all the way from that to this, which was a sort of an abbreviated version of the financial development of Ted Bates as an advertising agency, their growth. And this one, the names of clients, various clients that they've served or were serving at that time. The square attitude of that grid was then translated into signage for the interior of the place, and moving right along, thought I had another slide there. This is a symbol that was done for a lighting consultant in New York by the name of Evans and Hillman. And here you see it rendered in white, here in print, and in print it was always done as die-cut holes with the surface that you see the die-cut holes against. For instance, the back side of that letterhead was always the bright yellow you see on the inside of the envelope. This is an annual report that really isn't. It's a hospital, Mount Sinai Medical Center, which is actually a major medical school and a hospital in New York, quite a famous one. And the editorial idea of this booklet was which was incidentally a 96-page book, was to portray the past decade in a kind of a retrospective style, and to call out the major developments and happenings and so forth that had occurred in Mount Sinai. And so the cover called a selection of those highlights out and looked like this. The inside contained 6 double-page spreads which formed a booklet within a booklet, and ran in sequence against this sort of linear time frame background, and used a lot of different kinds of photographic and graphic techniques to symbolize or portray the milestones of the last 10 years. Some work in the brain area. Stress, and so forth. This is a poster, another mobile poster for one of their community service programs. They were broadcasting the Rucker tournament from Harlem on PBS at one point, and wanted to do a poster. The solution to it was to do 4 posters on one poster surface, in order that when they were all strung out together along the fence, the impact would be magnified that much more. Another series of booklets for IBM, their major recruiting series. Again, a very systematic approach, but with variables included in the treatment to allow for some personality to
project from the booklets that were aimed at specific career paths as opposed to the booklet that was about the company in general. That's the one you're looking at here. And the identical cover treatment with different photographic subject matter and the changes of title in color from book to book made up the series of 5, which then had interior looks that range from this to this, that, and that. Poster series for Mobil Oil, a sort of internal propaganda program, I've been told, in which they were trying to explain to their employees why it would be a bad thing for the government to break up the major oil companies. And these posters were distributed to all of their facilities and tried to make certain specific points about what would happen if that should happen. And this particular one is talking about if you break up the major companies, then no one will have enough money to pursue research and development in new energy areas. This one was very straightforward and was encouraging the employees to write to their senator or congressman to express their disapproval of the bill that was pending in Congress at that time. These are all incidentally one-sheet poster size, 30 by 40 inch poster scale. This was really the keynote program, the Blueprint for Disaster, which explained the premise that they were going to follow up on. And this talks about the dollar drain, spending the US dollars for the foreign products when we should be developing our own, and so forth, so on. Department of Transportation, this is a before slide. We've been working with DOT now for about 2.5 years and have developed a program that was based upon this 12-year-old piece of institutional heraldry which they felt they could not live without. And could we please make nice over it and make it right for now? And so we tried to do that, and I think that we succeeded in some ways. It would have been better in this case had their mark been 25 years old. I think we could have ditched it. But it does have a certain amount to do with wheels and movement and transportation. And we modified it so that it ran in the clockwise rather than counterclockwise direction. And cleaned it up and took the lettering away from the outer perimeters of it and put it together with a style of typography that we developed as an alphabet, actually as 2 weights of an alphabet. You see the configuration of the DOT mark, then the DOT name, and then the Federal Aviation name beneath it. Both of those weights of typography are especially drawn for this program and are used in such instances as this, one of the major publications of the Highway Administration. It's the Uniform Traffic Control Devices. All architects ultimately get familiar with this one. It's a bestseller. And this, a poster for FAA warning you about having 15 minutes reserve fuel for takeoff and 15 minutes beyond where you want to go, which is probably pretty good advice. And then we have implemented a rather major sign program for the FAA in a new building in Atlantic City, at their technical center, and the alphabet and the identification are very much in evidence all around this site. The signage program was a very complete one, included traffic and directional vehicular signage, as well as interior signs for the new building, which look like this and are a very, very simple application of the old alphabet weight. And are generally hung from the ceiling and used for directional indications. The kind of arrangement they have in this building is that you want to find a specific 1/4 of a floor that is devoted to the airport development division, for instance. Once you're there, you will know it because you will see this sign hanging out of the overhead, which will identify the specific functions in the open plan areas where you're groping around. And the system in use is extremely simple and extremely efficient. Here is the DOT mark at work on the aircraft fleet of FAA. We're currently, again, tackling a fleet of 21 different types of aircraft for FAA. And this was one of the first ones to be implemented. Again, the system designs itself in many ways because it has to be extremely simplified to accommodate all the various types of aircraft involved. And here our basic theme is the blue tail with the white symbol and the FAA name very much in evidence on the fuselage, and the blue belly. That plane in flight would show you a blue stripe out across each wing, and the underside of the tail and the underside of the body, which is a rather unique safety feature. At least they feel so in FAA. Another annual report kind of graphic treatment in which Forest Products Company, again, the Mead Corporation, is talking on the cover about a wood chip, which is the basic unit of their product. And the inside of this book follows up by telling a series of stories, each self-contained and each isolated by its graphic treatment, but again, each one of them being part of a larger idea in terms of theme and treatment. These are a couple of typical spreads from those stories. The unique thing about this is a very simple idea of running the caption over the edge of the photograph instead of just attaching it to the outside of the photograph. Another thematic treatment. This company, American District Telegraph, is in the security business, burglar alarms, fire alarms, and so forth, and they are without a doubt, the least colorful company in the entire world, and they want more than any other company in the world to be colorful and to have a full color annual report. So the idea behind this, the editorial theme, was to treat a bunch of case studies of their products in action as the content for the book this particular year, and we were able to begin the book with Colonial Williamsburg, which is a pretty good client to have if you're in that kind of business. And then we went on to a SAC-based, it's actually Moffett in the SAC base, and we used 35 millimeter slide mounts and showed sort of general ambiance from each of these places in those kinds of ways, and then showed a business situation in the black and white photograph that appears on each one of these major spreads. This one was an art crating business, crating and shipping fine art pieces. And this one was the Montreal Post Office. Squibb Corporation, another annual report publication idea in which the company as a whole was treated in a way that is similar to most companies' annual report treatments. After the year's review, there was a sort of segmented review of what was going on by divisional activity, but in the middle of the book, there was a surprise. This booklet within a booklet again, printed on short pages and having to do with hypertension. Squibb having developed very recently a hypertension drug, which is their great hope for the future. And to open the short pages in the middle and see this sort of thing made it a fairly unique annual report treatment. Dow Jones, the Wall Street Journal Company. This book was another, let's look at the last 10 years and see what happened. And here you see a typical spread talking about the Wall Street Journal. The dates are called out and the highlights or milestones from the past 10 years are illuminated, and on the right-hand side is a sort of future-oriented statement about what they intend to be doing in the next 10 years. The photographs were all very carefully made and to symbolize the various areas of activity, this being the Asian Wall Street Journal and a couple of other publications that they have in the Asian area. Community newspapers, this being a chain of 16 or 18 newspapers being used here in the public school system as a public service kind of thing. And this is an oldie, a graphic scheme for the Bicycle Man in Prospect Park in Brooklyn, New York. This was a fellow who had an idea about 2 tractor trailers, a lot of bicycles, a lot of pipe, and a lot of awnings, and all being able to fold up, go into the trucks, and vanish for the bad weather seasons, and then come back in the spring when the sun was shining again and people were ready to rent bicycles to ride through the park. So the solution to it was the old polka dot paint solution. Everything was striped, including the pavement. And consequently, it had a sense of place in the middle of a wide open asphalt parking lot in Prospect Park, which is a pretty overwhelming place to be. Again, a magazine, this one for the Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York. And again, a series of covers, which I think you'll find quite strong. This is their annual report. And an editorial spread. And a calendar series for a printer in New York, which should be a pretty good way to end this evening. Thank you very much.